help us work more closely with local partners. Together, we create targeted solutions for European industries and speed up the digital transformation process. For example, working with an IoT device provider, we developed a digital pricing tag solution for retailers. In the past, supermarkets had to update all prices by hand. The process was expensive, labor-intensive, and easy to make mistakes. With connected displays and a centralized management system, they can update prices instantly. This greatly saves time, labor costs, and ensures consistency. As for sustainability, we are innovating in the green technology space. Our goal is to help European industries shrink their carbon footprint and increase the efficiency of renewable energy. In Spain and the Netherlands, for example, we set up floating solar farms that provide clean power to thousands of homes, and we continue to expand our efforts in this area. Of course, cybersecurity remains our top priority. We have opened cybersecurity and transparency centers in Brussels, Bonn, and Rome. Through these open platforms, we will continue to work with government agencies, customers, and independent security organizations. Together, we are promoting shared security standards, verification mechanisms, and security innovation. From sustainable development to local enablement, Huawei is in Europe, for Europe, and we look forward to working with you to build a greener, more digital, and more secure future for all. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hu, for sharing Huawei's accomplishments over the past 23 years in Europe, and of course also outlining Huawei's continued commitment to accelerating the twin transition in Europe. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's continue the conversation. How can we leverage intelligence to accelerate the twin transition, and how can we do that together? What is required? I would now like to welcome to the stage the Senior Vice President and President of the European region at Huawei, Mr. Jim Liu.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Paris, a long history, beautiful, and full of innovation city. I'm Jim from Huawei Europe. Today, I'm very glad to be here to share Huawei's strategy in Europe together with you. And I will focus on embrace intelligence, accelerate green and digital transition together. As we know, technology innovations is very important for the social progress. We are very close to the intelligent world. Intelligent technologies are developed rapidly, and thanks to the massive computing power. So now we have more and more foundation models and algorithms emerging. And they are now used in different scenarios. Every breakthrough in technology creates new demand, which creates more possibilities and opportunities. As we are seeing in histories, cars changed transportation. Computer, not instead of a calculator, but changed our communication model. So today, intelligent technologies is also changing the world. In Europe, the digital and intelligent technologies are playing a big role in Europe's twin transition. At Huawei, we always look into the future. Over the past 30 years, we have innovated continuously to build competitive products and solutions that meet our customers' needs. More importantly, the success would not be possible without the joint innovation with European customers and partners just like you. Let's back to the 2003. Huawei adopted our all-IP in strategy, when CT and IT were combined in network infrastructure. We cooperate with European customers and partners to unify telecom standards. Our innovation product and solutions, such as Single RAN, are helping bring the connectivities for everyone. Huawei now supports the stable operations more than 50,000 networks in over 170 countries and regions, which connected 1/3 of the global population. Following the all-IP strategy, we adopted the all-cloud strategy in 2013. And in 2017, in Shanghai Huawei Connected, we announced our goal to build one of the top 5 clouds in the world. And today, I'm very proud to announce that we have achieved that goal. Huawei Cloud have become one of the world's fastest-growing mainstream cloud providers. From all IP to our cloud, Huawei has taken major steps forward in every 10 years. So today, now is time to achieve all intelligence. We want to leverage our expertise in ICT to help customers and partners to seize opportunity in the future time. So let's take a close look at what we can do to support this transition. Europe is hoping to the first climate-neutral continent. By 2030, Europe will reduce its net greenhouse gas emissions by 55%, and plans to increase the renewable capacity to 45%. Europe has already expanded its renewable infrastructure, just like smart PV, energy storage, and wind power generation systems. These actions will promote Europe's green transition. As for digital transition, the Digital Decade policy has set very clear targets to the digital infrastructure, business digitalization, digital skills, and more. European companies need to increase the use of digital technologies, especially AI, cloud, and big data. Digital skills are also the basis for all of this. We need more ICT specialists and more people have the basic digital skills. How can we solve these issues to accelerate green and digital transition? I think from Huawei's side, we believe there are 4 pillars that's very important to support this transition. They are connectivity of everything, intelligent cloud, bits managed WAS, and of course, for Huawei now in Europe, open collaboration. So I think the 4 pillar is very important to support the 2 transitions. The first pillar is the connectivity of everything. Industry data now is very difficult to collect, transmit, and utilize. More than 50% of the traditional devices are not yet digitalized. So low-speed networks and the data silos also make data uploading and analysis difficult. So this keeping industry from going intelligent. We must make data a new resource of productivity. To do this, data must be better collected, quickly transmitted, and well used. Europe is a global leader in the industry domain. During the digital and intelligent transformation, Europe will need to use connectivity technologies to integrate operation technologies, OT, with ICT. This will help them efficiently collect and transmit industry data. Intelligent connectivities will need to networks that are resilient, ultra-broadband, intelligent, and lossless. This network will support the real-time transmission, analyze, computing of massive of data, and help maximize the value of data. Take Hungary EWG terminal as an example. EWG is one of Europe's largest intermodal terminals, and it's also the first 5G smart railway logistic terminal in this region. With 5G ultra-high bandwidth, ultra-low latency, and high reliability, this terminal enables remote control of cranes. And this terminal now is much safer and offers better conditions for workers, and runs 20% more efficiently. The second pillar is the intelligent cloud, which is the foundation for industry digitalization. Cloud can provide strong computing power and easy-to-use tools. With massive AI computing powers, we can make all decisions computable, bring intelligence to everywhere, and maximize the value of the data. Cloud can also enable a vast range of new models and applications. With foundations model, we can develop intelligence applications to benefit all industries. In the area of intelligence, cloud-based AI and algorithms can create huge business and social value. Now, I would like to share a story about the Huawei Pangu model. On July 6 this year, Nature published exciting data about the Pangu weather model. The European Center for Middle-Range Weather Forecast, ECMWF, is now running an experimental Pangu weather model. This model can machine learning. And this model has proven itself to predicting cold air outbreaks and typhoon paths. For example, it was able to predict the cold front that hit Finland in February this year. And in the past, it would take 3,000 high-performance servers 4 or 5 hours to predict the 10 days route of typhoon. But now, the Pangu model can do just in 10 seconds on one single server and deliver more accurate results. A multi-cloud architecture is also very important. According to the third-party survey, 89% of the enterprises have embraced a multi-cloud infrastructure. Huawei Cloud will continuously to invest in Europe and create more values for our customers and partners. In October last year, Huawei Cloud launched its first cloud node in Ireland. And in July this year, we launched another cloud node in Istanbul, Turkey. Now, Huawei runs 84 available zones across 30 regions worldwide. And we have gathered more than 42,000 partners and over 5 million developers, and serving nearly 3 million customers. And tomorrow, my colleague from the Cloud BU will put more time to talk about Huawei's strategy, cloud strategy in Europe. The third pillar is Bits Manager Watts. This is our approach to accelerate green transition. At Huawei, we are focused on cleaning power generations, energy digitalization, mobility electrification, green ICT power infrastructure, and integrate smart energy. We want to help Europe build a net zero power system. And we are already working with many European power partners, channel partners, installers, and householders to use our digital power solutions to support the European Green Deal. And to data, I give you some number. We have helped Europe generate more than 228 billion kilowatt hours of green electricity and reduce carbon emissions by more than 100 million tons, and also create tens of thousands of high-level jobs in Europe. The first pillar, I think, is very important for Huawei now in Europe. It's open collaboration for shared success. Huawei always put our customers' business success before our interests. During the past 23 years, cooperation with European customers, we are always customer-centric, which is one of our core values. For partners, and we do believe that the green and the digital transition will not be easy. And I think no country or region can succeed alone. Strengthened cooperation with European partners is one of Huawei's core strategy. Huawei is ready to willing to work together with partners to provide better products and better solutions. We have set up 3 open labs in Paris, Munich, and Istanbul to develop the local ecosystem. And we are working over 100 regional solution partners to provide scenario-based solutions for education, retailer, and more industries. Finally, talent will be the foundation for all of this. We are committed to develop ICT talent in Europe. Since 2011, we have worked with 186 European universities to set up ICT Academy. So far, the academies have provided ICT training for 20,000 European people. And our Seeds for the Future program has also running in 38 European countries that can help the future leaders and the young people in Europe to learn more digital skills. Europe is one of our most important strategic regions for Huawei's global operations. As King Hu just now said, we are in Europe for Europe, and we are continuously to invest in Europe. And finally, I want to say my personal feeling about Huawei in Europe. This is my second time working in Europe. My first time is from 2010 to 2016. At that time, I worked in Central East and the Nordic. And this time, I'm back to Europe. So many customers and partners. My old friend asked me, "Hey, Jim, this time you come to Europe, maybe something changed." This is a reality because we are facing some challenges. I think you know that. But I think something never changed. I think 2 things is very important for Huawei in Europe. One thing is our heaviest long-term investment in R&D. Last year, we invested $23 billion to R&D. This can keep Huawei leader position in high technology domain. Another thing is customer-centric. Maybe whenever you have cooperated with Huawei, whoever your customers or partners, you can find Huawei people, we are not only talk about customer-centric. This is the core value from our heart. In Europe, we have 10,000 people, 8,000 are local guys. All of us dedicated for success, for your success. I think something can change. Something can never change. And we know that if without your support and trust, we cannot be the succeed. So thanks for you again to come Paris. I think your action has given us more confidence. Finally, I just want to use a sentence from Churchill's. I think the success is not the final. The failure is not the fatal. It is the courage to continue the count. Thank you, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Liu. That was very insightful. Ladies and gentlemen, as we just heard, Huawei has taken major steps every 10 years to evolve from all IP to all cloud to now all intelligence in a relatively short period of time. Now, for any of you who live in France, you will most likely be familiar with the French supermarket chain Leclerc. Well, we are very lucky today because we have a guest who's going to reveal how innovation can benefit consumers at Leclerc. And for that purpose, I am very excited to welcome to the stage the President of the Strategy Committee at Leclerc, Monsieur Michel-Édouard Leclerc. Welcome.
Bonjour mes amis de Huawei, bonjour amis partenaires de Huawei. J'introduis à la demande de nos amis de Huawei cette séquence pour, au fond, vous dire comment un groupe d'indépendants, de commerçants indépendants, a essayé de relever le défi de la modernité par le digital, par les solutions, par les partenariats que nous avons mis en place ensemble, et notamment avec Huawei depuis 6 ans. La photo qui est derrière moi, elle est pour moi riche d'émotions. C'était il y a juste avant le Covid. J'étais dans l'est de la France. On m'avait demandé d'inaugurer un des entrepôts Leclerc, les plus technologiquement avancés, une sorte de réponse logistique à l'arrivée d'Amazon en France. Et quand je suis monté sur le podium pour inaugurer devant les médias cet immense entrepôt, un investissement de 165 millions d'euros, dont les 2 tiers en soft, j'ai redécouvert les personnages qui étaient à côté de moi. Et je me suis rappelé, c'est la séquence émotion, je me suis rappelé que ces personnes, je les ai connues en accompagnant mon père, 40 ans avant. Ils étaient apprentis bouchers, ils étaient boulangers, ils faisaient des stages dans un centre Leclerc de la région parisienne. Rien ne les prédisposait à devenir les patrons de cet entrepôt. Rien ne les prédisposait apparemment à être les leaders ou des leaders de la distribution moderne. Et d'ailleurs, je me souviens bien, je n'ai pas été écouter le discours de mon père, j'étais avec eux, ils n'arrêtaient pas de parler de la fille du patron qui avait l'air de les intéresser beaucoup plus que le futur de leur métier. Mais cette image, pour moi, c'est une leçon. C'est une leçon formidable. Et pour vous, Huawei, et pour nous, chefs d'entreprise, grands cadres, dans notre économie française. Car, comme je le disais, ils n'ont pas fait d'études, ils ne sont pas informaticiens, ils n'ont jamais appris à perforer des cartes pour faire du COBOL ou du Fortran, ils ne sont pas programmeurs, ils ne sont pas codeurs, ils étaient bouchers, boulangers, et ces 4 personnes, dont Jean-Paul Pajot à droite, qui va devenir président de la Chambre de commerce de Reims et qui finit par venir me chercher pour être président de Neoma Business School, ces hommes-là, vous voyez, ont passé leur vie non pas à nier la technologie, mais à aller rechercher dans la technologie les moyens de leur développement, mais aussi de leur épanouissement. Ce qui veut dire qu'ils ont aussi trouvé sur leur route des prestataires, des chefs d'entreprise qui les ont accompagnés et qui ont parlé le même langage. Car le problème des nécessités de mutation technologique aujourd'hui, c'est qu'elles apparaissent pour les 3/4 des hommes et des femmes sur le terrain, dans nos régions, dans nos provinces, comme parlant un langage inaccessible pour nous qui n'avons pas eu cette culture, avec aussi ce véhicule d'un sentiment de déclassement très fort quand on a l'impression, répondant aux questions de nos enfants, qu'on n'en est pas, qu'on ne comprend pas ou qu'on fait semblant. Moi, je m'appelle Michel-Édouard Leclerc. Ce sont mes parents qui ont créé les centres Leclerc dans leur cuisine. Imaginez une boutique à Kowloon, à Shenzhen, mais du temps révolu où il n'y avait pas grand monde. Mes parents ont ouvert une boutique qui vendait de l'épicerie. Il n'y avait pas de data. Il y avait une camionnette pour aller chez les fournisseurs, chercher des pâtes, du riz. Simplement, mon père avait ce sens d'une mission sociale. Et au lendemain de la Deuxième Guerre mondiale, à la fois, il voulait que la nourriture soit accessible au plus grand nombre, mais il comprenait aussi qu'avec le plan Marshall, la reconstruction de l'économie française allait être beaucoup plus industrialisée, avec du mass market, avec la loi des séries, avec une standardisation des produits. Et donc, il a fait évoluer la distribution, sa distribution, ses collègues de Leclerc, puis après Intermarché, Système U, pour avoir une distribution qui ne soit pas un goulot d'étranglement face à cet investissement dans le mass market. Aujourd'hui, je vous disais, nous sommes un groupe de distribution, c'est presque 60 milliards de chiffre d'affaires. C'est une coopérative de commerçants indépendants, à l'instar de nos partenaires allemands de Rewe ou Edeka. Nous sommes d'une organisation atypique, mais comme tous les commerçants aujourd'hui en Europe, nous devons insérer des savoirs, des technologies dans nos métiers quotidiens. Nous avons aujourd'hui peut-être le plus fort taux de progression sur le marché français, avec, je crois, près d'1 point de part de marché pris chaque année sur notre concurrence et sur des marchés qui pourtant sont relativement peu énergiques, plutôt en baisse de volume. Nous le devons, bien évidemment, à la qualité des investissements, j'allais dire traditionnels en magasin. Nous avons des beaux magasins. Mais nous avons redécouvert le drive. Le drive, c'est pour la plupart de nos entreprises familiales propriétaires de nos magasins, une manière de s'initier au digital, au numérique, en gardant très proche le dépôt du drive, les pistes du drive, de l'autre côté de la ville, c'est-à-dire sans perdre la maîtrise d'une technologie qui vraiment sert et leur stratégie patrimoniale et leur stratégie commerciale. Piloter le drive, c'est piloter la logistique. Huawei nous aide. Piloter la logistique, aujourd'hui, c'est ce qui fait la force du drive. Le drive est en soi une révolution, mais ce qui est fort chez Leclerc, pardon pour l'aspect un peu publicitaire, mais ce qui est fort chez Leclerc, c'est que le drive est au même prix que l'hyper. Aborder le multicanal avec des solutions techniques, avec un déploiement logistique qui nous permet d'avoir un seul discours prix très visible dans toute la compétition sur la distribution, c'est une force extraordinaire. Ça mémorise les prix, ça permet de comparer les prix, ça permet, quand on a choisi d'être le moins cher, d'avoir sans arrêt des marqueurs de cette performance. Le drive, la logistique. Aujourd'hui, 14% du chiffre d'affaires de Leclerc se fait à partir du digital. Pour le moment, les stratégies patrimoniales de nos entreprises familiales l'emportent encore sur le développement du digital. Mais sur le multicanal, aucun problème pour passer un pied de la pédale économie physique sur la pédale d'accélération économie digitale. Hypermarché, drive, web marché, place de marché, plateforme. La logistique a été conçue pour pouvoir livrer jusqu'à domicile ou en passant par des relais. Nous sommes prêts et c'est une des vertus. Je n'ai aucune fausse flatterie à le dire devant mes amis de Huawei. Nous avons bien travaillé ensemble. À partir de maintenant, d'autres enjeux sont devant nous. C'est celle d'une relation client plus personnalisée, plus soft. On va essayer de ne pas faire comme Netflix et de repasser le même film tous les soirs en proposition aux spectateurs. Donc il faut que la data, même si elle nous apprend à connaître les clients, soit aussi capable de répondre à la question « Étonne-moi Leclerc, fais-moi voir un film, une offre, une initiative commerciale qui me sort des sentiers battus, vous allez voir que ce n'est pas si facile. » Donc le développement de la data, l'utilisation de la data, plus que la vente de la data. Chez Leclerc, nous voulons l'utiliser. Nous aimons, ce sont des entreprises familiales, nous sommes très indépendantistes. Je ne suis pas breton pour rien. Et la data, donc, c'est quelque chose que nous allons énormément développer, ce qui suppose dans la relation client, des Wi-Fi qui marchent en magasin. Parce que je ne sais pas si vous allez faire vos courses, mais aujourd'hui, tous les distributeurs de Carrefour, Auchan, Amazon, Leroy Merlin, tout le monde renvoie à des applications, mais quand vous venez en province et que vous allez dans les magasins, je peux vous dire, c'est quand même pas encore... Bon, on a beaucoup de petites 3G, quoi. On n'en est pas encore à la 5G. Voilà, donc ça, c'est encore un travail sur lequel on va se développer. Et puis l'autre chantier, le prochain, c'est la décarbonation. Alors là, il va y avoir un énorme travail, bien sûr, relationnel entre la distribution et l'industrie. Vous savez qu'en France, on est beaucoup dans les conflits corporatistes, sur les prix, sur les pénalités logistiques, sur les livraisons. Mais c'est quand même un territoire où nous ne pourrons grandir vite qu'ensemble. Et là aussi, sur la décarbonation, même si 77% du bilan carbone d'un Carrefour ou d'un Intermarché ou d'un Leclerc résulte des émissions de carbone de ce que l'on vend, plus que de ce qu'on construit, ça vous montre bien tous les systèmes d'échange, de connexion qu'il va falloir mettre en place ensemble pour gagner cette bataille. Je voudrais finir cette présentation avec deux messages, donc. L'une, pour mes amis de Huawei, vous avez réussi avec nous, non pas à nous dompter, mais à nous convaincre, et c'est très important pour vous développer dans nos métiers. C'est très important que vous préserviez, que vous trouviez les mots, que vous trouviez la philosophie qui garantit que l'on se sente en sécurité face à ces technologies, peu importe d'où elles viennent, en sécurité face à ces technologies et dans notre capacité de les maîtriser. Le frein à l'innovation technologique, c'est la peur de ne pas maîtriser sa politique commerciale, sa politique sociale, sa politique de développement par une technologie qui imposerait et son discours et ses obligations. Ça, c'est pour Huawei. Et pour nous, amis du terrain, amis du carrelage, comme on dit souvent dans notre métier, je voudrais témoigner à travers l'expérience des centres Leclerc, non pas pour faire la géographie de cette marque, je voudrais témoigner que nous sommes capables, malgré les enjeux financiers, malgré les enjeux technologiques, nous sommes capables de nous adapter à ces propositions de connexion, de développement, d'enrichissement de notre relation client. C'est vraiment inéluctable. J'ai connu, de mes 72 ans, j'ai connu tous les distributeurs dont les enseignes ont rempli les cimetières de la distribution depuis que je suis né. Vous ne pouvez pas vous imaginer le nombre d'acteurs géants, magnifiques. Ils s'appelaient Remarché, Rallye, Record, Unico. Il y avait énormément de distributeurs quand je suis né. Le numéro 1 français, c'était Coop. Il n'y en a plus en France. Ils ne se sont pas adaptés. Ils ne se sont pas adaptés à Carrefour, ils ne se sont pas adaptés à l'Hyper, ils ne se sont pas adaptés à Aldi Lidl au premier prix, ils ne se sont pas adaptés au digital, ils ne sont pas là encore. C'est vraiment, aujourd'hui, c'est faisable. Osez-le. Nous sommes partenaires de Huawei. Je n'ai aucune fausse pudeur à leur faire cette publicité. On marche bien ensemble. Allez-y aussi. Merci à tous.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Leclerc. It was very interesting insights into what Leclerc is doing to innovate. Our next guest is the Policy Director at Solar Power Europe, a member-led association for the European solar PV sector. And to learn more about the power of solar in accelerating Europe's green energy transition, the challenges as well as the opportunities, let's welcome Mr. Dries Akker.
Hello, and thank you very much for inviting me to this great event, to Huawei Connect 2023 here in Paris. It's really a pleasure to be here. My name is Dries Akker. I'm the director for Solar Power Europe, and I will run you through to the state of the solar sector in Europe. Little spoiler alert, solar is booming, and it's really, truly accelerating the energy transition in Europe. Just have a look at this. Another record, the 5th consecutive record of solar deployments per year we marked in 2022. We have installed more than 40 gigawatts of new solar PV in Europe just 1 year. The 5th record in a row since 2017. But 2022 was different. 2022 was the year that showed some kind of a coming of age, a certain tipping point for solar PV in Europe. A tipping point in 3 ways, I would say. First of all, a tipping point when it comes to political support for solar. We have seen a European solar strategy dedicated to our sector. We have understood politicians saying that solar is essential for Europe's energy security, for its climate ambitions. It was also a tipping point for the societal support for solar. Most of the solar that was deployed in 2022 was residential. Rooftop, more than 60%. It was people choosing for solar. And it was also a tipping point when it comes to the corporate support for solar, when we've seen that more and more off-takers, big companies, sign PPAs, power purchase agreements, with solar the suppliers, and also SMEs putting solar on their roofs. So that was really a special year, and we have no reason to think that it will slow down. Quite the opposite, as I will show you in a couple of slides. But let me first kind of give you a little bit more breakdown of the numbers that we see here. What are the top 10 markets in solar in 2022? What you see here are all the countries that have installed more than 1 gigawatt just in 1 year last year. You can certainly see some usual suspects. Spain, Germany, they have been leaders for the last years, and they're still leading the pack. But you also see increasingly some unusual suspects. Who would have thought, for example, that Poland was number 3, the Netherlands, further down, Denmark, not the sunniest country if you ask me, more than 1 gigawatt in 1 year, Austria as well. And then there's some interesting stories to tell from the slides, for example, with respect to Italy. Italy is back. Italy had some difficult years, but is back on a roll, had a record year of solar, and also the projections are quite rosy. I should also mention, being here in Paris, that France was the only country in 2022 installing less solar than the year before. Allez la France, we can do better. But let me give you also another perspective on these numbers and break them down in a different way to show what are actually the hidden leaders. What you see here is not the amount of solar installed, but broken down per capita. So the solar kilowatts per inhabitant. And then a different picture arises. And we believe this picture is quite useful because it tells you how present solar is in a country, how big the political support, the societal support is, how visible solar is in a certain country. And here we see different countries. Yeah? We see countries like Estonia, Switzerland, Luxembourg. These are big solar countries for their size. But of course, I think the shout out is only appropriate for the Netherlands. The Netherlands is the country with most solar per inhabitant in the world. That the world recognized. I love spontaneous applauses. More than 1 kilowatt, it's really a leading example. Are you Dutch, by the way? Okay. Very good. So this is the opportunity, and it's an opportunity in many ways. It's also an opportunity when it comes to jobs. Solar is really a jobs motor, and politicians know it. It's part of a tipping point logic I was telling you about earlier that we've seen this year. Solar has really been embraced. And if you look at the jobs, it breaks down across the entire supply chain. Jobs in manufacturing, jobs in deployment, operation and maintenance, also in decommissioning. But obviously the big jobs motor, the big stack there on green is about deployment. Installers, project developers, electricians. These are the people we want, these are the jobs that we create. And we will need more workers in that area. This year already, 650,000, a massive increase compared to last year's. But we need more, because we will continue to grow. And we will probably need more than 1 million workers only in a couple of years from now. So that's important, because otherwise, installers, electricians become a bottleneck to the transition, and we've already starting to see that to some extent. So we really need to reevaluate these types of jobs. Installers, electricians are the heroes of the energy transition. And we will certainly need them because growth is on the horizon. Just look at this. This is what we project for the next years. I told you about the record year 2022, 40 gigawatts. This year, we will be well above 50, 55 in that area, and it's probably not going to stop. We project a continued growth, 63, 76, and onwards in the next 5 years. Just think about it. In the next 5 years, Europe will deploy more solar PV than in the last 20 years together. That's kind of what I call transformational. Yeah, that's unprecedented. And what we have done in the last 20 years is actually not necessarily a guide to what we will need to be doing in the next 5 years. So that's quite an outlook. And it's not only solar. In the wake of solar, there's also the market for residential batteries that is expected to boom. Just look at this. Home storage systems, residential battery systems are booming. This is a slide from Germany, because Germany is the obvious leading market here. In Germany alone, we're hitting now more than 600,000 units on aggregate, a jump with 50% compared to last year. But if you project it, we see that this will double to more than 1.2 million in only 3 years by 2026. So the German market for residential battery systems is huge. But they're not alone anymore. We're finally seeing some kind of a proliferation of the battery market to other countries as well, like Italy, Poland, Austria, the UK. So it is finally starting to become an EU-wide phenomenon. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, this is amazing. And you're right. But you're also thinking, this sounds easy. This is going well. It's going by itself. The truth could not be further away from it. Because, of course, a lot of these projections, they imply and they assume further improvements to the policy environment. I like to call it progress as usual. So it's not business as usual, but it's also not necessarily breakthrough change. All we need is a continued attention from the political class to improve policies where they're needed and to create an environment in which your businesses can thrive. I think that's a summary of my job, by the way. That's what I do in Brussels to make sure those European policy frameworks are in place for your businesses. And let me just walk you through the top 5 concerns that we have, or the top 5 policy challenges that we see on the horizon for the solar industry. First of all, inflation and interest rates. We are in an inflationary environment. The interest rates are up, they're making projects more expensive, they're delaying projects because there's a need for renegotiation. It's a real concern. What can we do about it? First of all, it would be wise for governments to index their public auctions. The same auctions need to be reflective of the higher expenditure and the higher cost because of inflation and interest rates of these projects. So they should be automatically indexed, because otherwise it delays things, as we see today. Second, we should talk to the central banks, the European Central Bank. They can oblige banks to buy projects and increase their portfolio of investments in deflationary technologies and deflationary projects. Solar should be one of them. The European Central Bank can actually do these kind of things. So that would be very welcome as well. Second, grids and flexibility. This may well be the main challenge amongst the 5. This may well be the next frontier, the next level that we need to achieve to integrate solar PV better in the grids. I will come back to that in the next slide, because it's that important that I dedicated one to it. Third, spatial planning and permitting. I told you, in the next 5 years, we will deploy more solar than in the last 20 years. That means that solar will be more visible. It will be more present in daily life to people. It will occupy more space. So we need improvements there in the policy from two ways. First of all, we need to use all of our artificial structures, rooftops, car parks, optimally. And this is something that we're now, exactly at this moment, discussing on the European level, to have a solar rooftop mandate in the European Buildings Directive for all new and all renovated buildings, at least. So that's one point. Second, it won't all be on artificial structures. We will also have ground-mounted PV, and there we need an improvement in the permitting procedures, also incentivize the double use of land. Agri-solar or the floating solar, as was shown earlier, are excellent examples. And there we are optimistic that we're making progress because we have an excellent European Renewable Energy Directive, which landed just a couple of weeks ago. Fourth, growing the pool of certified installers and the skilled workforce. I told you before, now we employ 650,000 people. We need to employ double of that by 2030 if we are to be able to go on the deployment figures that I've shown you before. This is not an easy task. This needs policy attention. This means we need to have reskilling programs. We need to have cooperation between technical schools, universities, and solar companies. That's what policy needs to incentivize. So a big job there. And then the last one is on sustainability. Sustainability of solar PV supply chains. And let me tell you, this is a big focus for European policymakers right now. And it has 2 dimensions. First, it's about sustainability from the point of view of the quality of the product. So product quality standards around, for example, carbon footprint or recyclability or fire safety. We are, as we speak, landing and discussing with the European Union new legislation on that. Eco-design, electronic waste, all of that is coming to solar. It already exists for batteries with the battery regulation. But there's also another dimension on sustainability. And that relates more to sustainability from the point of view of resilience. Resilience of the solar PV supply chains. And that has a more geopolitical connotation to it. Like, how do we make sure that Europe is not too dependent on one source of supply? For the European Union, this is a very important agenda because there's this perception that we don't want to replicate the over-dependency that Europe had on Russian gas into the clean energy. So how do we do this agenda? It was called the Green Deal Industry Plan. How do we combine investing in resilience with continuing a fast and cost-effective deployment? These are critical questions that we're dealing with right now as part of the Net Zero Industry Act or the Critical Raw Materials Act. But I promise to come back to number 2, the main challenge, the real next frontier. And that is about integrating solar in the grids. If we don't do that well, we're going to hit a border. We're going to hit some kind of a glass ceiling because we're going to see price cannibalization. It will mean that solar profits eat solar profits. And it will mean that the business case for the next megawatts of solar will dramatically decline. So this is important. And what we need to do is to flatten the net load curve. And that's a very technical thing. But I try to kind of translate it into calming down the duck. And the duck is basically representative of the load curves during the day. So calming down the duck, how do we do that? You see first the big duck there. Large peaks. It's a big duck. It's angry. The duck is upset because the peaks are large. It doesn't know what to do with that. In the system, there is no self-consumption. There's no local optimization of your PV installation with some local electricity demand. It's pure a one-on-one grid relation with the household. Not good. Big duck, not happy. If we go further to the medium, large peaks, duck's getting smaller. It's feeling a little bit better because there's a lot of local optimization happening between the PV, the battery, the electric car, and the heat pump. All of that is managed well, and central to that is a smart inverter, right? That's what you guys do at Huawei, right? So this is important. So that is a second, but what we really need and what we really want is a calm duck, small duck, happy duck, maybe a bit of a sleepy duck as well, Zen duck. And that is only possible if we combine all of that, and we also go to a system where energy is exchanged between site and shared, so that the congestion on the electricity grid is really reduced. So how do we do that? How do we flatten that net load curve? How do we calm the duck? There's 3 ways we can do that. First, let's think about systems, not just individual technologies. We have to combine incentive schemes of solar with an electric mobility, with a battery. This needs to be integrated, not separately. It's obvious. We also need to maximize self-consumption. Second, we should further activate local demand flexibility. Let's move to time-of-use tariffs. Let's make sure that smaller loads can also pitch into flexibility markets. Let's make sure that we have an activation there. And again, the inverter is so central to that. Smart inverters that can manage that local system is really going to tick that box. And third, let's open the data silos. For the moment, it is so difficult to have energy data shared across different players. And that is really hampering the optimization that we need in terms of the sharing and the reducing of congestion. Of course, such an opening of data silos need to be combined with intellectual property protection and also with cybersecurity gaps. But we really urge the European policy frameworks and the European leaders to work harder on that, because that space is really still in its infancy, and it's exactly there where the green and the digital transformation can accelerate and mutually reinforce itself. So there's a lot of work to do on that side. Now, with these 3 points, we can get from the big angry duck to the small happy duck. And if we do that, we will take the next step and we will make sure that solar PV really drives the energy transition in Europe even more than today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Acker. That was a fascinating presentation and a very promising outlook. Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, we live in the era of intelligence, also known as the fourth industrial revolution. To give us an overview of the global technology and industry opportunities and trends, I would now like to welcome the Group Vice President and Head of Industry Insights at IDC EMEA, Ms. Roberta Bigliani.
Good morning, everyone. It's really a pleasure to be here and being on stage in front of you, because you are the one that with creativity, innovation, hard work are transforming the ICT industries. And by transforming ICT, you are transforming the way company operates, the way we live our life, and also the society as a whole. And you are doing it in an environment that is more and more demanding, more and more challenging, and where we are under the storms of tons of disruption. And let me just remind three. The first one is inflation. We forgot about that, in Europe at least, thanks to the Eurozone, and economists were not even considering it for decades. Then we have the fears of the recession and all the concerns that are related to that. But last and not least, we also have huge pressure in terms of lack of talent, lack of people. The speaker before me was talking about solar, energy transition. We need electricians. We need installers to make the energy transition happening. And we know we really need also a lot more digital dexterity and digital skills. And I was so glad to see in the movie at the beginning how Huawei is investing in digital literacy. So many, many different challenges. And of course, we all know that being resilient is the perfect recipe to cope with all of them. And in this awareness, what we also discover is that digital matters. Digital maturity matters because it delivers high performances, better performances. We have analyzed all the industries and all the indicators, and what we have measured is that digital champions, digital transformers, always obtain and outperform their peers in terms of revenues, in terms of profit, but also in terms of any other indicator. So in general, there is a very positive correlation between digital maturity and performances and outcomes. And so it's not a surprise that many companies started the journey of the digital transformation. And at the beginning, it was a little bit more like leveraging technology even more than we were doing before, taking the advantage of cloud, mobile, connectivity. But then they realized that they were not delivering all the results they were expecting, and so they focused the strategy in a slightly different way, and so thinking about closing the gap, the return on investment gap. And that was the history, because I think that we are now already in a new and different era. Huawei call it the era of intelligence. In IDC, we call it the digital business era. So the era where digital is not something that we consider as an enabler in our strategy, but is the strategy. And is capable of introducing completely different and new business model, the way we go to the market, the way we cure our patient, the way we serve our citizen. And of course, the digital transformation has been affecting all industries, but not all of them have moved at the same path. And so in this new digital first era, what we are seeing are some industries that are at the forefront, so like gaming, media, entertainment. And then we go down, banking, retail, manufacturing, down to the bottom of the curve with agriculture, oil and gas, mining. And I do believe agriculture is one of the industries that really, really needs tech and digital transformation to unleash the value of tech for food. Now, of course, the industry went through and are going through with different pace because of the nature of the industry, but also because the transformation journey is not an easy thing to do. And there are a lot of challenges along the way. And of course, we mentioned talent, but also resources constraints, all the things that we were discussing before and the previous speaker also highlighted. But sometimes I'm always a little bit surprised by the fact that one of the challenges that we always forget is to set the basic foundation. And I want to share with you this couple of data because today, in every event, in every conversation, we hear talking about generative AI, which is absolutely important, don't take me wrong. But the reality is that in companies, we are not sharing the data. Based on our studies, only 12% of enterprises connect customer data across all the departments. And one company out of two, even more than one out of two, has data underutilized. So it seems that data are not the diamonds, but are still the dirty coal that you don't want to use. So that's an important element to take into consideration. And if we look at the digital infrastructure, which is the pillar, one of the foundation of the transformation, we have measured across the different industries that we have room for improvements because only 11% of companies and organizations are really leading in terms of having the right and powerful digital infrastructure in place. The majority are still developing or enhancing. And so, what we have to think about? Well, we need to know what to expect. And Louis Pasteur, the father of microbiology, in one of his lessons was saying, chance favors the prepared mind. So I think that we need to be prepared. We need to know what the past was teaching us, but what the future is teaching us. And so I would like to share with you a little bit my personal view on how I see the digital journey story today, yesterday, and tomorrow. So we started with what I call the multiplied innovation. A lot of technologies finally unleashing their power, and we had, of course, mobility, network, and more recently 5G, and of course cloud. All these things together enabled a real acceleration of the digital transformation. And then in probably now and a few years ago, we started this moment of platform and communities. And I will talk a little bit more about that. But now in 2023, we are at the dawn of the next phase. The phase that IDC calls AI everywhere, or the intelligent economy, like Kim was saying before. But let me explain, just spend a couple of words on each of these phases, because all these phases, you can put them in a sort of timeline, but at the same time, each phase builds on itself, and they're all playing simultaneously in our daily life. And so if we think about multiplied innovation, with the enormous improvement in computational power, cloud, simulation, and graphic design, and all the other capabilities that nowadays ICT can offer, we can really put in place super effective digital twins. We can mirror the reality in a digital world and think about how to visualize what we have to do. Think about a surgery and learning how to do surgery. Or we can visualize the digital thread and connect them. We can do simulation, and we can create effective integration feedback loop and interaction feedback loop that can transform the way we operate and save huge amount of money in terms of financial resources, human resources, but also reducing the impact on the society and the planet. And so it's not a surprise, I guess, that what we are predicting as IDC with our Futurescape is that in a few years, 70% of upstream operators, just to mention one, will systematically adopt digital twin, reducing, of course, their cost by 10%. That is multiplied innovation in the past and today. But then the other concept is platform. And in the moment I say platform and communities, I know that everyone reminds about the old story, or they are still existing, of course, as company, but the Uber, the Airbnb, and everyone wanted to become a software company, which was, in my opinion, a big mistake. And then we had communities and things like TikTok. Now, what I'm talking about is not these things for digital native. I'm trying to talk about platform-based business that are applicable to every single business and organization. Even the huge, gigantic company like electricity company. I spent 30 years in the electricity sector, and everyone thinks that is a little bit conservative. But back in 2019, I was so glad that I was doing a prediction exactly on that. The CEO of one of the largest electricity company in the world, Enel, said that he wanted Enel billions of revenues, enormous amount of networks, very large employee base. He wanted to have Enel becoming a platform-based business. And thanks to the work with the C-suite, and of course with the group CIO, they made it in 2 years. And they revolutionized completely the data architecture that is at the core of the new business operating model they put in place. And they transformed the platform archetype to really be part of this concept of the digital business. So everyone can do it. It's not just for startups. And then we have the last phase, well, there will be further phases, but the last that we are going to cover today, which is AI everywhere. And to give an example of this, let me use the industry that was at the top of the curve that I was sharing, media and entertainment. So I don't think it's a surprise that company like Fox use generative AI to power the activities and the thing that they are doing, as well as the Master Tournament in Wimbledon. They started and they experimented an automated audio commentary for the Masters. So this is an industry that has quickly embraced, and I guess that you all are aware about the strikes that were happening in Hollywood that was solved, I think, 3-4 days ago. And I think that is something that has to teach us, because what we have to achieve with AI everywhere is a responsible and ethical AI everywhere. AI, digital, will make the world better. But we need to be better humans. If machines are becoming better, we need to be better humans. And we need to have always in our transformation journey this view of being always human first and solve the purpose of our company and our society. And so to conclude, I would like to share with you a couple of, let's call them recommendation, call to action. So maybe the most important one is, in reality, the fact that we need to master the digital business. We absolutely have to do it. It's not a choice, it's a must. And in order to do that, I think that the first step is to build a solid digital infrastructure. Without that, we cannot go and dream about introducing the most advanced piece of ideas and technologies. Then I think that we have to create the strategy and the roadmap, but we have to execute. Action, action, action. Sometimes I'm in meetings and conversation with C-suites, and I heard so many pilots and ideas that are never flying. So execute. You can be wrong, but it's better execute and then improve than just piloting and never going into the actual existence of what you want to achieve. And then I think that Kim said it at the beginning, no one, not even the largest company on the planet, can do it by itself. We need to work together. And it's so fundamentally important that we create the right network of partners, the right ecosystem, that we define what kind of role we want to play into the ecosystem. Because that will make the win-win-win story much, much stronger. And then I think that we don't have to forget about the fact that there will be scarcity of talent, especially in Europe, for all the kind of jobs. And so make the best and train and reskill and give digital dexterity to your employees, to your colleagues, to the students, to the entire society, because that will help us making the planet a better planet to live in. And with that, I would like to conclude by saying, well, we are living a transition. The next transition is coming. We need to be ready. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Spigliani, for outlining how we can navigate the present and what we need to do to continue to evolve in the future. Our next speaker is the Chief Executive Officer at the Global Enabling Sustainability Initiative. And it's the only global membership organization that works with international stakeholders committed to ICT sustainability, with digital solutions at the core of solving the world's most pressing environmental and social challenges. To learn more about how ICT can enable Europe's green transformation and accelerate sustainable development, please give a very warm welcome to Mr. Luis Neves.
So, good morning, everybody. I would like to start with one question for you. Recently, someone made the statement as follows: humanity has opened the gates to hell by letting the climate crisis worsen. So, any one of you knows who did this statement? No one. So you are completely distracted from what is happening in the world. This was done by the UN General Secretary just a couple of weeks ago. And this is about climate. And climate, I did recently an interview to the Huawei magazine, Transform. And the title of that interview, it was The New Atomic Bomb. Climate, the conflict in the Middle East, the new geopolitical situation in the world are three major issues that we need to follow. And why are they important? Because they touch upon our business. So we can talk a lot about business and technology, this marvelous world, but we need to sit back and think about that in 20 years' time, the planet, or 20, 30 years' time, the planet most likely will have 10 billion, 11 billion people, and the planet needs to be sustainable. And that requires a major shift in the way that we think and we do business. And now I can start to talk about Jesse, because what I said before is strongly connected with what we do at the Global Enabling Sustainability Initiative. We are a business industry initiative, a global industry initiative. We have many members, and Huawei is one of our members. And that's why I'm here to speak with you today. And we have been working for over 20 years on what I call the intersection between digital technologies and sustainable development. And we've done a lot of work, and I will not go through the history of our organization, but we recently did a strategic review of GESI, and we aligned on our new vision, which is about foster digital innovation responsibly to transform the world for good. And this is a fundamental thing that we need to take into account when doing business. You know, we can make money, and we like money, we love money, and money is at the center of everything. But we need to think about the future. We need to think about the future of the new generations, and we need to understand how are we going to shape, through technology, the fantastic technologies that we are developing, how are we going to contribute to a better world. So we have values in the organization, and they are here. You can read them. I don't need to go through them. And our value proposition is to be a leading organization to enable, through digital solutions, to respond or to address society's most pressing challenges. And that means that everything that our members do, when it comes to innovations, to sustainability, we think about what is the benefit for the society, and we analyze that, as well as we look into the problems and the challenges that we are facing. And the challenges are what I call the walk the talk position. It's about to measure. We need to understand how much are we emitting as companies. We need to define targets. We need to strongly invest in renewable energies, and we need also to transform our supply chains. And so these 4 areas are areas of intervention that we support our member companies to work on those areas, and we are involved in many different projects. We are about to finalize the project with the European Commission on developing a methodology to measure the net positive impact of digital solutions, which will go into the European taxonomy. And so any company that wants financing from the European Union in the context of the Green Deal needs to use our methodology in the future. So this is what I call the problem side. But digital technologies, you know, big data, blockchain, AI, cloud, 5G, virtual reality, all these marvelous technologies and disruptive technologies, they will be fundamental to create a sustainable planet. But we cannot only talk about that. We need to measure that. We need to show the benefit. We need to demonstrate what is the enabling potential of purpose-driven ICT technologies, and we need to use digital technologies to enable the other industry sectors to become more efficient, but we need to make sure that we measure that. And in GESI, we have been working on that for quite a long time. As you can see from this slide, since 2007, that we have been doing research with McKinsey, with Boston, with the Accenture Strategy, more recently with Deloitte. We have been looking at how can digital technologies impact climate change. And what we have seen is a fantastic evolution since 2007. In 2007, in the first report that we've done with McKinsey, digital technologies could enable 5 times more than the own footprint of the digital industries. So the footprint was calculated at 2% of the global emissions, but we could reduce 5 times more in the vertical industries. In 2015, with the same methodology, the Accenture Strategy did a report for us, and the factor was 1 to 10, as you can see in this slide. So our footprint was more or less the same, but we could reduce 20% of the global emissions. And we did a report more recently with Deloitte in 2019, looking at 2030, and we called this report Digital with Purpose, delivering a smarter 2030. And why have we done that? Because we need to communicate the positive impact of digital technologies while looking also at the negative impacts. And I want to give you here 2 examples of that research that we have done. So this slide is about the results of our 2015 report. As you can see on top, we can abate 12 gigatons of CO2. So the global emissions today, they are around 60 gigatons of CO2. Digital technologies can abate 12 gigatons of CO2, those 20%. And here you can see by sector how much digital technologies can reduce carbon emissions. So we are bringing a value to every single vertical industry: mobility, manufacturing, agriculture, buildings, energy, education, and so on. So we have calculated that value in terms of abatement of carbon emissions. And here you have some results, about crop yield, increase per hectare on smart agriculture. So we could reduce 25 billion barrels of oil, take out from the streets 135 million cars, and reduce consumption of water by 300 trillion liters. So, and water is a very critical area today, as we all know. And so the digital industries, when applied, we can really bring a value to many different sectors and industries. What we also calculated, it was the business value, because we can talk about carbon emissions, but of course companies, they want to understand, if I apply a new technology in transportation or in buildings and so on, what is the value? So what kind of value am I bringing to my customer? Not only from a carbon reduction perspective, but also from a financial perspective. And this slide shows you by industry how much benefit we have calculated, both for the stakeholders, for the customer sides, and the benefit for the ICT sector. And all of this together represents 11 trillion US dollars, equivalent to the GDP of China per year. And so this is the story that we are building in Jesse and communicating with our members. So this is not only about talking about the technologies and thinking that you can make money only by selling the technology. Actually, you can make a lot of money by demonstrating the benefit of the technology to your customer. And almost no company is looking into this. They are not factoring this in their communication. So I was in China a couple of months ago visiting Huawei in Shenzhen and looking at those fantastic technologies. And my question to Huawei and all the other companies is, why don't you communicate that? Why don't you use this conversation in relation to your customers, demonstrating the value, but also to policymakers? And the second example is about the 2019 report. We call this report Digital with Purpose. I don't know how many of you have heard about the Sustainable Development Goals. How many of you know the Sustainable Development Goals? No one? Well, you are not living in this world. You are aliens, for sure. The 17 Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, they are fundamental to achieve a sustainable planet in 2030. And so every single company, every single Jesse member, we have more than 50 companies in our organization. All of them, they have to report that on their sustainability and financial reports, by the way. And so we looked into the Sustainable Development Goals, the 17, 169 targets, and we analyzed each one of them, one by one, in connection with those 7 disruptive technologies that I mentioned to you, to calculate the impact, the positives and the negatives. And we quantified that. And so we measure all of that. The report is only available online. We analyzed 500 case studies. It's a huge report. And we have calculated the benefit of digital technologies for sustainable development. If you deploy infrastructure, what is the benefit? What is the benefit for water, for health and well-being, for poverty? We have done all of those exercises. And I would like to show you some key messages of that report. The first key message is that urgent intervention is required. This comes back to my initial statement about the climate crisis. The world is not going into the right direction. Carbon emissions continue to grow. Next month in Dubai, there will be the Conference of the Parties, so the Climate Convention. There will be more than 170,000 people coming to Dubai to discuss the climate crisis. China and the US are having talks about that, because that's fundamental that the two blocs come to an agreement about how to reduce carbon emissions, as well as the European Union. You saw in the first slide that the European Commission committed to reduce 55% up to 2030. We will see if that happens. But it's important that we as citizens, as people, as companies, we think in our lives, in our activities, that everything that we do, we need to take into account the climate perspective. The second message is that digital technologies will have a positive impact in the Sustainable Development Goals, but digital technologies can contribute and need to contribute more. And that's why in GSE we are working on this with our members. We are pushing our members to the last mile to show how those technologies can contribute to a better world. I will not go through this slide. It's again an example around SDG 9, SDG 6 on clean water. As you can see here, applying digital technologies, you can have a positive impact, as well as on the industry innovation and the infrastructure. So we have measured all of this, and this is a demonstration how digital will be fundamental to achieve sustainable development in 2030. And I would like to show you an example from IBM, the Flex platform, which is a solution that can help governments, municipalities, and corporations through the use of emerging technologies such IoT or AI to connect and aggregate their demand-side flexibility across a large fleet of commercial buildings, heat pumps, and electrical vehicles charging stations. As you can see in this slide, in every single area, using digital technologies and using this IBM platform, you can calculate the efficiencies. The question is, you calculate these efficiencies, but the other question is, how are you communicating this to your customer, and how are you using this as a selling point in connection to your customer? So if you reduce 40% or 50% in a charging station, you're generating a benefit. You need to calculate that. You need to communicate that to your customer and show him the benefit. And this is a way of selling technologies, and we need that companies really measure the impact of those technologies for good. And I will finalize with this slide, very big, just to show to you the scope of our organization. So we are a business industry initiative. We are part of many different organizations, the Climate Innovation Forum, the Sustainable Innovation Forum. We participate in the Climate Week in New York, in the United Nations. We are part of the United Nations Summit of the Future for 2024. We will be at COP28 in Dubai, organizing an initiative called the Digital Innovation Hub to show the impact of digital technologies for sustainable development. We are developing a methodology for the European Commission in the context of the European Green Digital Coalition. The top operators in the world are part of this coalition. All the CEOs subscribed. We are, of course, in the World Economic Forum in Davos. But more importantly, we have our own initiative in GESI, and we call it Digital with Purpose. Digital needs to have a purpose moving forward. We need to take responsibility for what we do, but fundamentally, we need to show the benefit of digital technologies for good. And this is a trademark. This is a summit that we organize now every year in Portugal. This year, we brought together 4,000 people around this conversation. We had more than 300 speakers during 3 days talking about how digital technologies can create a better future, a better world, a more sustainable planet. So thank you so much. I know that I had a different conversation from the previous conversations, but this is a dimension that we need to take into account moving forward. We are here in a tech summit, but technology is about people. If you think about technology, you need to think about what is the meaning of technology for people and for good. And that's the best selling point you can use to take your business forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. much, Mr. Nevis. Very interesting insights for filling us in, of course, on how we can really benefit from ICT solutions and help to create a greener, more sustainable world. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to continue with a conversation around how we can accelerate Europe's twin transition. And of course, as you know, this requires collaborating. It requires collaborating with many stakeholders, including European stakeholders. And our next speaker is the member of the European Parliament and the Socialist and Democrat Coordinator to the Committee on Legal Affairs. And he is going to update us on how EU policymakers are progressing in regards to the twin transition, with a particular focus on the digital pillar. So please join me in welcoming Member of the European Parliament, Mr. Iván García del Blanco.
Good morning, bonjour. Thank you so much for the invitation. I was talking with the previous speaker behind the scenario, and I was telling him that for me, this saying about calm down the duck is going to be a saying for the rest of my life, because I love it. I know that is a saying that is normal in the energy sector, but I'm not an expert in the energy sector, so it was so cool for me. As I said, thank you for the invitation to be among these remarkable speakers, to bring up to this notable conference the latest regulatory process in the European Union has done, with a special focus on the digital package. The European Union aims at becoming a modern, fair, sustainable, resource efficient, that is an important point that is at stake today, and competitive economy in the world. To attain this goal, the European Union has signaled two main priorities: a transition that builds on the European green transition to facilitate this transformation, which will require the subsequent change of many sectors of society, together with a digital transition to fast track of European digitalization through investments, skill, and appropriate regulatory framework. Our goal is to boost Europe's competitiveness and sustain the green transition towards climate neutrality by 2050, as well to ensure technological sovereignty. In this perspective, the green transition goes hand in hand with the digital transition, and we need to facilitate the creation of synergies in order to encompass the transformation of our European societies towards a greener, more digital, and more resilient Europe. The massive implementation of artificial intelligence in all the machines we interact with in the public arena, in the professional scene, and in the social order represents a revolutionary technological leap. Life will never be the same. Changes will be very substantial in the labor market, in the relationship with public authorities, in the personal perspective too, in the environmental viewpoint, and even in our domestic life. Precisely for this reason, it is so important for the European Union, on the one hand, to boost the potential that these technologies have for Europe's well-being and competitiveness, and on the other hand, to control the inherent risks or prevent these consequences. When we talk about the impact of artificial intelligence in green transition, we talk, for example, about accelerating the analysis of large amounts of data to better understand and tackle environmental challenges, or about supporting the integration of renewable energies in the electric grids, or in key improvements in the buildings sector. However, when we talk about artificial intelligence, we also talk about risks on a scale previously not known, that need urgent attention. For example, experts estimate that the information and communication technologies cause 5 to 9% of the world's total electricity use, which may rise to 20 to 30% in 2013. This is just an estimation. At this day, it is not possible to determine the proportion of energy consumption caused by the operation of artificial intelligence in digital hardware, data centers, and networks. We recently know about water consumption for refrigeration of data centers. Google's water consumption increased by 20% in 2022, according to figures provided by the company itself. On its end, Microsoft, which owns 75% of OpenAI, the creators of ChatGPT, did so by 34% in the same period. These are amazing figures. Such figures shows that we need to address the carbon footprint of the consumption of essential and raw materials that digitalization entails. AI should and could be used by governments and businesses to benefit people and the planet, to contribute to the achievement of sustainable development, to preserve the environment, and to achieve climate neutrality and circular economy goals. The regulatory framework related to digitalization, in particular the AI Act and the Data Act, together with the Fit for 55 package, should drive us towards these objectives. Allow me now to focus my point on the AI Act, which is probably the most important piece of regulation in the digital realm. Artificial intelligence was first addressed by the European Parliament's Legal Affairs Committee in a legislative initiative report on framework of ethical aspects of artificial intelligence, robotic and related technologies, for which I was the rapporteur. This document served as a reference for the European Commission proposal on the AI Act, which is pioneering law consistent with our European principles and values, as reflected in the Charter of Fundamental Rights of the European Union, and congruent with our civilization project. Its objective is to achieve a European AI that is safe and responsible, ethical and reliable, democratic and sustainable, aiming at anticipating the risks that this technology entails without affecting technological progress for the benefit of humanity. It also seeks to position itself as flexible and forward-looking framework that does not limit innovation, technological development, and competition. The focus of a EU AI Act proposal is on the use of these tools and the risks that they may entail. Application or uses of AI that entail unaffordable risks to our societies are prohibited in the proposal, such as uses of social scoring systems by authorities on real-time biometric surveillance in public areas. High-risk uses give rise to situations which may cause harm or to health, safety, or the violation of fundamental rights, particularly in relation to sensitive areas that deserve special legal protection. The Parliament position is to extend the criteria for qualifying the high risk of artificial intelligence systems when they entail damage to environment or to democracy and the values of the Union as consecrated in the Article 2 of the Treaty. The concrete scope of the Artificial Intelligence Act is still an ongoing negotiation process between the European Parliament and the Member States. We are now in ongoing negotiations. We are now in the fifth, is the one that is going to be the fifth trilogue now, that I think that it says by itself the complicated negotiation that this kind of regulation would entail. What both co-legislators look for this is that users gain trust in technology, guaranteeing that providers of high-risk artificial intelligence systems are subject to stricter requirements. Appropriate data governance in the data sets to eliminate bias and avoid discrimination, to perform risk assessment and mitigation plans, to be subject to high level of transparency to inform deployers and users, and human oversight to push the stop button in case of problems. When it comes to transparency, there are some extra requirements out of to artificial intelligence interactions or deepfakes to give the natural persons exposed to the artificial intelligence correct and complete information. Moreover, the European Parliament has included a new set of provisions for foundational models or large language models and generative AI. Such provisions do not challenge the risk-based approach of the AI Act, but focus on the need to carve out a specific systemic risk that general-purpose AI can entail if there is no follow-up by the providers. When it refers to generative AI, the Parliament has also included some extra transparency measures in order to avoid the creation of illegal content and publishing copyrighted data used in its training. Furthermore, Parliament has included the need to carry out a risk assessment on fundamental rights and democracy. Being all these points very important, to me, ensuring digital access and literacy to European citizens is absolutely fundamental to the democratic health of our societies, and the Parliament has also included in the text of AI Act. In this moment, the negotiations between the European Parliament and the Council on the Artificial Intelligence Act are ongoing, as I said. It is not an easy task, but we all hope that an agreement may be reached by the end of the year. I'm just trying to have approved in the European Parliament this rule at the end of next month. Allow me now to transition towards virtual worlds. That is another important issue that we are facing with, too, in the European Parliament now. Since my election as member of the European Parliament in 2019, I have been calling the attention of the European institutions on the potential of virtual worlds. It is through the gaming sector that I became aware of the tremendous perspective of these creative forces involved in the development of the virtual worlds. Consequently, 2 years ago, I proposed to include in the European Union budget a pilot project calling the institutions to create a space in the metaverse. The pilot project is going to be launched very soon by the European Commission, and I'm hopeful that it will shed light on the ongoing virtual reality. The Legal Affairs Committee has published in the last weeks a draft report on virtual worlds, for which I'm the co-reporter. The aim is to make a call to the Commission to examine possible legal issues posed by this technology following its communication of an EU initiative on Web 4.0 and virtual worlds. A head start in the next technological transition. I have to say that it's a very interesting piece of work. I think that I've never seen this kind of study before. It's worth looking to that. Additionally, this report on virtual worlds has to serve as a basis for future parliamentary work during the next term, with a focus on those topics related to international civil, commercial, and intellectual property law, together with the umbrella of the ethical aspects posed by the use of virtual worlds related to privacy, accountability, moderation, and so on. There is an enormous workload ahead of us, as intense as thrilling. From describing concepts to reflect in liability rules, from drawing parallels with the real world to solving the new legal challenges that virtual worlds bring, from transparency requirements to intellectual and industrial property rights considerations, including enforcement and the identification of the infringers, copyrights, and trademarks. To conclude, I would like to focus on an aspect that was touched upon before, about digital literacy. That is, for me, the biggest challenge of every of them, at least for European and for public institutions. I'm going to reflect what I consider the key aspect of digital transition, the digital illustration for citizens in the Union. The right uses of the technology along with citizens' trust will encourage innovation and the implementation of digitalization in society. Often, we talk about the importance of acquiring basic digital skills or digital literacy to be able to understand and operate in the digital world. In my opinion, we have to aim for the digital illustration of our society as a whole. Inclusive programs to bridge existing gaps on digital literacy must be a policy priority. It is not only about acquiring the basic tools in relation to how to handle networks, smartphones, or apps. People also need to understand what happens with the data, how to protect from attacks, matters of cybersecurity, be aware of the uses of AI and acquire media skills that allow a critical view of the information and also of the services we received through digital media. If the European Union wants to lead the path towards a digital and green transition of our societies, we must ensure that AI and new technologies work for people, that they are forced for good for society, and they are committed to improving the lives of citizens throughout their life cycle, and that they respect our principles and universal human rights. Legislators, public authorities, stakeholders from different sectors, citizens and society as a whole, all of us, must focus our efforts on ensuring that the development and commercialization of AI and new technologies encourage talent and enhance the range of skills needed to enable a flourishing ecosystem contributing to the development and sustainability of our societies. Thank you for your attention. Enjoy the presentations and the debate. I've enjoyed too the previous presentations, and I wish plenty of success for this meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much to the Member of the European Parliament, Mr. García del Blanco. Ladies and gentlemen, as we just heard, it is important that we focus on making sure that technology can work for people in Europe. Now, we have reached the end of this morning's session of the Huawei Connect 2023 Day 1. And I want to thank all of our speakers for their brilliant contributions. We hope that you found their inputs valuable. And I also want to thank each and one of you for attending this morning's session. Now, we hope that you continue to join us and continue the conversation with us. We have some great breakout sessions this afternoon, as well as the exhibition, so do make sure you join us. It is happening on the same floor here, outside in the main area. And before I forget, before you leave, please make sure that you put your headphones back and leave them at the entrance. That will be very much appreciated. On behalf of Huawei, thank you once again. Wishing you a great afternoon. Merci et à bientôt.